this over here? Who's this over here besides you?
We're like, our two middle guys are gone. See you tomorrow.
It'll be cold. Over.
I can't ever get mine to work. I just go off the. No, he's right there waiting. You're holding things up, Brian. Okay, good evening. I'll call to order the October 17th, 2022 Haywood County Board of Commissioners meeting, and our first order of business will be our Pledge of Allegiance, and after that I'm going to ask Pastor Josh Frazier to come forward for invocation. If anyone would please stand for the pledge.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Let us pray. God in heaven, we thank you for another day to be able to live this wonderful life that you've given to each one of us. What a blessing it is, and I pray that each one of us recognize that in our lives, in the area that you've given us to be good stewards of. We thank you for this meeting today. We ask that you would give wisdom and guidance to all those who will be making decisions. We thank you for our elected officials, the leaders that are here in our county and our towns. We pray that you continue to utilize them. In your name we pray. Amen.
Okay, we live in a beautiful area. My mom and dad live up near Lake Logan, and I drive that quite often, and it's really pretty this time of year. If you get a chance to drive, you want to take a drive, go that way, up to the Parkway. It's a really pretty drive. Okay, our next order of business is a public hearing, and tonight we'll be having a public hearing concerning amendments to Chapter 114 of the Junkyards and other facilities in the county of Haywood, North Carolina, of ordinance. And our county attorney, Frank Queen's going to describe that. Go ahead, Frank.
This is almost no alteration at all to the existing ordinance. The only changes that have been made have been trivial adjustments to topography, references to dates, and one place in it I added a parenthetical phrase that sort of in the statute anyway, but it's a phrase of how you do an appeal. It's called in the nature of certiorari. You don't need to know any about that, but that's the way it was done before. All I did was put that parenthetical phrase in so that it's brutally obvious from the ordinance that that's the way we do it, continue to do it. There's no change in anything that we've done. We just added dates and tinkered with language that made it conform to the current statute. See, we went over this when we rejiggered all of our ordinances to conform with the state passing Chapter 160D. That passage of that act a couple of years ago instituted a bunch of changes that we went through the process of last year. And we changed a bunch of statutes, including this one, a bunch of ordinances, including this one, to conform to Chapter 160D. And so as a result of that, there was very little to be looked at even this time. This is a part of the process of going through all the ordinances of the county, making sure that our statutory references are still correct, making sure that obsolete language is taken out, stuff like that. This is one where it didn't need any change at all.
I noticed that. It just seemed like it was very small tweaks. Okay, so we'll have a public comment session for this ordinance change, but we'll have another public comment session later for the folks that have signed up. So would anyone like to make a public comment about the ordinance, the junkyard, for lack of a better word, the junkyard ordinance? Would anyone like to speak to that? Okay, seeing no one, I'll close the public comment session for the ordinance. Okay, then we'll move on to a regular public comment session, and I do have two citizens that have signed up to speak, and please limit your comments to 3 minutes, and Tracy will let you know when your time's up, and if you would, just finish your thoughts, okay? And the first person we had to sign up to speak was Joy Hearn. Welcome, Joy. And if you would, you can pull the mic down if you need to and just speak into the mic so everybody can hear you. And welcome, and appreciate you coming out tonight.
Like that? Is that okay?
Huh?
Is
Greg?
there any ring in here? There's a horrible ring in this room.
It's probably the HVAC.
Oh, okay. My name is Joy Hearn. I live at 42 Farside Drive in Maggie Valley, and I'm here to discuss NHIL, noise-induced hearing loss. And 2 years ago, in October 2020, I had participated in a couple hearings, the October and the one in November, on hearing loss and what happens, and with some of these, particularly with live music. I'd like to read the sheriff's report from then, because I don't think anything's changed. October 27, 2020, 1958 hours, I, Corporal Hemingway of the Haywood County Sheriff's Office, was dispatched to a noise complaint at 81 Corbin Shady Lane by EOC. I arrived at 20.09 hours and could hear booming music from the Smoky Mountain Event Center. I called down to Deputy Kilby, and he asked if he could request the event coordinator to turn the music down as the neighbors were complaining. He advised a county commissioner was down there and was okay with the level. I informed him my caller was not happy with the level of music. I called Miss Sexton, and she requested I come inside the residence to hear for myself the loudness of the music. I tried to explain to her I was on the outside, and I understood, but she insisted I come in, and I did so. The level inside with the decibel meter was approximately 57, and outside on the rear deck was 85. The music was loud inside, and the house vibrated from the intensity coming from the speakers set up at the event center. I explained the county noise ordinance to her, and she told me she requested deputies in the past, and they didn't come out. I explained how to contact the sergeant if needed and get a copy of the report. I cleared the scene at 20:39 hours. I was in the house with her, and I actually made a recording of what was going on. I had something similar 2 weekends ago in Maggie, and I called the town manager, who's a pretty gutsy lady, I'll tell you, and the police chief, and they went and took care of it. It was obnoxious with these guys with speakers in the back end of trucks. I wrote you a cover letter about people. This is a county-wide thing. That's why I'm here. My opinion that ordinance needs to be narrowed to decibel levels so it can be enforced. Otherwise, it's just somebody's opinion. Okay, Allen's Creek was one letter. Another one was the guy who called the event center on July 30th, called it sound like mashing cats. Sam Morgan, I think it was. And Linda Sexton was actually down on site, and I have a picture of her phone when she recorded at 109.6, near, it looks like maybe 50, 100 feet back from the stage. The problem with this hearing loss thing is sound is like a hurricane, okay? 75-mile-an-hour wind, when you double it to 150, does not double the damage, it does 268 rounds up above damage type of thing. It's much worse, and it's the same way with sound. So I'd just like you all to take a look at it and get back to us, if you would, and prove me wrong. I know you deal with facts, and I got all the facts, okay, and all the history on it. And I was a music teacher, so.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Hearn. Okay, our next person to sign up to speak is Deanne Wilmot. Welcome, Deanne.
Hi, I'm Deanne Wilmot. I live at 243 Walnut Ford Road. And I wrote the commissioners, all of you, a letter. I signed each one of them. I sent it to you on August the 20th, 2022, by mail to make sure you could get it. I got no response. I'd like to read that letter now because obviously you didn't, so I'll give it a try. Dear fellow commissioners and Mr. Inslee, the Southern Rock Woodstock concert at the Smoky Mountain Event Center on July 30th, 2022 was once again extremely loud and disturbing to the surrounding communities. Those of us who were exposed to the raucous and extremely loud presentation were disgusted that you, as our representatives, are continuing to ignore our concerns. I know that you are cognizant of the problem that is causing your constituents anxiety, consternation, and possibly hearing damage. Your duties designate that you establish service levels for mental health and public health. You're supposed to represent and protect those persons affected by this blasting of unwanted sound. There are definite steps that you can take to protect those of us in communities that are adversely affected. We requested that you write a reasonable noise ordinance for Haywood County almost 2 years ago, and I want to know what you have done towards that. The decimal levels beside the arena were 79.1 to 85.9. At my home, the decimal levels were 69 to 74. I do not live in Regina Park. I live above Regina Park, and that's what it was on my deck. Anyway, as we asked before, we request you devise an ordinance in Haywood County designating a maximal reasonable decimal level to be adhered to with consequences for breaking that regulation. I've been told the Haywood County deputies now have decimal meters so they can check it out, and I want to know what will you do to properly adjust this regulation so that the sound levels are not so bad. I'm not saying it happens with every concert. That's the whole problem. And so with this one, that Woodstock concert, it was really bad. The whole community was disturbed. And it just, I have heard someone from the commission said that that has been addressed before and some regulations were made. The problem is you need to let us know what regulations were put together by the committee or the fair board or whoever who did it so that we can know and we can know what those guidelines are, okay? I'm just asking that you respond to us reasonably as a constituent. Thank you for listening. Bye.
Thank you for comments, Ms. Wilmot. Okay, would anyone else care to address the board tonight? Seeing no one, I'll close the public comment session. We'll move to constituent concerns. I don't have any. Does anyone have any? Anyone?
I don't have any that, except the ladies that spoke this evening. I suppose those are constituent concerns.
Yeah,
I guess
yeah.
Tommy can probably speak to that as far as the fair board goes.
Yes, I do serve on the Fairgrounds Board. Are you having a hard time hearing me? Can you hear me now? We've got some new equipment up here. I'm not sure. Can you hear me in the back?
They can hear you. Go ahead.
Okay. I believe that's better now. Can you hear me? Okay, good. Yes, I am on the Fairgrounds Board, and we heard from the neighbors a couple of years ago, and we formulated a community group with the homeowners presidents of Foxfire 1, Foxfire 2, and Regina Park. We also had a sound expert that ran the sound at Harris Event Center in Asheville, and we had a board member whose brother is a sound engineer from Ohio, and we put together a very comprehensive board. We had several meetings. We had a sheriff's deputy there, and we, as a fairgrounds committee, we came up and basically we had one homeowners president, I think Mr. Adderholt. He was the main driver that brought the proposed noise parameters to us, and we were glad he did that, and I think the board unanimously adopted that since he was a homeowners president. So I will try to forward you that information, Ms. Wilmot, and if you have a some type of a format or some type of template that you'd suggest to us, I'd appreciate that. Maybe from another county, another state, possibly you live in, or another county's noise ordinance, and we can compare and see where other people are. And so we can look at that as a fair board. So, and again, I'm speaking as a member of the Fairgrounds Board on this topic.
I have had one constituent concern, and I've talked to the county manager about it, and I guess we're going to work on it some more next week. It's a tax question.
The information you had, you can forward to okay.
And I understand you're not a member of Regina Park, so that we'll try to get that to you. But those were the immediate people that were invited, and so if you're not a member of Regina Park, you probably didn't get that information. But I'll forward you his email, and maybe he can put you on that email list, and we can address concerns as they come up. So, but you know, this thing's very complicated. I know I sat in on several hours of meetings, and there's a time-weighted average. There's things that some chords, I guess some people's voices are even obnoxiously loud sometimes. There's spikes, and so you know, it is complicated. And I know when I was looking at this, I just pulled up some notes here while you were talking. The regular hair dryer, a woman's hair dryer, is 90 to 100 decibels, and a vacuum cleaner is 85 to 90 decibels. The average vacuum cleaner. Average motorcycle is 100 to 110, and a chainsaw is 100 to 130, and a jet airplane is 130 plus. So, you know, my wife bought a new hair dryer, and she gets up very early, and it just blows me out of the bed. I told my wife, I said, honey, you need to get some earplugs. You know, you really need to get some earplugs. You're going to have permanent hearing loss from that hair dryer. And so I think she's taking my advice. But yeah, I'll get with you on that. Thank you for coming.
And our emails are on the website. So on the Haywood County website, our emails are. If you want to send us an email, then Tommy can send you one back with that information. Do you have email? Yeah. Okay. All right. Okay. Thank you. Okay, is there any other constituent concern?
No, I had one as well, but I think it's the same as Commissioner Best, if I'm thinking correctly. So I assume we'll take care of that this week. Thank you.
Then on vehicles. I did have a constituent concern regarding older vehicles and the values on older vehicles, so I guess if we could look at that.
I did too, a few weeks back. You had a short meeting, I can fill you in after the meeting.
And Judy Hickman can let you know that. She sent out some information on that. Okay, our next order of business is administrative agency reports and presentations, and the only one we have tonight is the update on Shining Rock Classical Academy, and we have Shining Rock Head of School, Josh Morgan. Welcome, Josh.
It looks like you've taken Mr. Long's advice of obnoxious voices here and just closed up the whole presentation here. Now what? I think you went the opposite direction with this thing. That is okay. It's been a full blast Monday all day long. I'll let her keep on pushing buttons over here. You know, somebody's got to be pushing buttons around, I guess. So you can see the presentation here in front of you, and I'm sure it'll come back up there in a minute, maybe. It'll take it a minute, so it'll be fine. I was telling Mr. Dove there a few minutes ago, before everything started, just trying to put everything together and everything, and I had realized, and I have to apologize, it's been a little while since I've come and talked to you guys and lady about Shining Rock, because the last presentation I had was from March of 21, so it's been about a year and a half. So I apologize for having a little bit of a delay. We've been a little bit busy in the school side of things, and that's really what I wanted to sort of touch on and get everyone up to speed on as commissioners, as constituents alike, in terms of the things that we've been able to do in that period of time. I'll spare you the history lessons of Shining Rock prior to that all the way through. The first thing, is just sort of touching on some of the things that have changed. Most noticeably, on the front end of things, we have begun offering high school classes. So we now have 9th and 10th graders. 10th graders began this fall. We began offering 9th grade classes last year. And by charter school law, we can continue to offer an extra grade each year, and that will take place. We will have a graduating class by 2025. So that is where we're heading there with that. We've also established some MOUs, some memorandum of understandings with the community college, as well as with the School of Science and Math. And so we have a couple of students who are taking courses either at one of those institutions or at both. Those have been very successful and very productive offerings for us. The School of Science and Math offers those courses virtually in a couple of different formats and pathways. It can be a pathway for some of our students to actually become fully enrolled at the School of Science and Math, either virtually or on their campuses in either Morganton or Durham. Shameless plug for the community college. Dr. White's not paying or funneling anything here. We have an awesome community college in Haywood County, and I always use any format I can to brag on that resource. We are truly blessed to have Haywood Community College. They have been excellent to work with for our students, and what they've been able to provide for them, I'm exceptionally grateful. We've also initiated the Junior Academy. That is our 3- and 4-year-old program. That is currently on the Dogwood campus. It's in part of the campus, and the high school is actually in the other parts of that campus as well. So we're utilizing all of our spaces there. We have achieved a report card grade of a C each of the last 2 years, and we continue to be in the top 40% of all schools in the state. We did slide backwards just a little bit this year compared to last year. We had the highest growth, actually the second highest growth in the county last year, and we sort of slid back just a little bit this year. And again, I think just shameless plug for all educators in Haywood County. All of our citizens in Haywood County should be very proud of all of our public schools. Shining Rock included in that, because we all perform quite well, and everyone should be very pleased with their public schools here in Haywood County. And again, I apologize, because it's been a year and a half. If there's anything that comes up in my presentation, you don't have to be polite, just interrupt, and I'm used to it. I'm around kids all day long, so it is what I do. The next piece of information I'll share with you is just enrollment growth and statistics. You'll notice that we had a little bit of a sag, but we've recovered nicely from that. If you go back to the 2018-19 school year, we had an enrollment of 401. And then we dropped to 316, and then we recovered the very next year to 410. And we've gradually increased, and this year our enrollment is 601. And one of the biggest things that I take into that, there are really two important data points that really, to me, validate what we're doing beyond just an enrollment number. The enrollment number's nice, but I also want to make sure that we look a little bit deeper than that. The first number is our retention rate, and you can see that we did have some issues that one year. There was a fair amount of things. We won't go through rehashing some of those things, because we've worked to resolve those things. But in the last 3 years, our retention rate of students has been 92%, 88%, and 91%. The students that have left us predominantly have been those who have graduated out prior to the last couple of years, or they have gone primarily to the early college. That is where we see a fair number of our 8th graders. When they leave us, that's where they've been going the last 2 years, is to the early college primarily. Which again, that's an excellent resource, and we encourage our kids to use those resources to advance themselves as far as they wish to go. The other statistic is the number of applications for new students that we have received. Each of the last 2 years, we've received over 230 applications. This past year, we actually received a little over 250 applications. And for the first time, we actually had a wait list in a couple of grades. So the wait list essentially means I ran out of space. I could not offer up more seats to students because I was out of classroom spaces in those particular grade levels to be able to offer up those seats. So for the first time, we actually had some wait lists that we were not able to resolve. Sometimes what happens is we might start the first day of school with a wait list, but between people leaving or not telling us that they were leaving, we're able to get those resolved pretty quickly because we want everyone who wants to be a part of our school to be in our school. This year we were not able to accommodate that because, as you can see from the retention numbers, people didn't leave, and we had more applications than we had open seats. So that's what happened there with that. To give you a bird's eye view, I think the last time I was here, I think I showed you a fancy video of a shell of a building. That is the building now that we have on Russ Avenue. You may not always get to see it from the top like that. You probably get to see it as you're driving to the lake. But that is where we house our kindergarten through 8th grade students. The Dogwood campus, that is the location for our junior academy and also our high school students as well. The beautiful facility that you saw on Russ Avenue, it did have to get paid for, and you guys and ladies know that the joys of paying for things is not a joy. So we had to secure a bond for this, and we worked with a financial partner, H.J. Sims, to be able to secure that process. By the time it was all said and done, it was a $21.4 million bond that we were able to secure. This consolidated previous debt, as well as the purchase of the land and the construction of the building on Russ Avenue. This bond closed at the end of August, and a couple of things that I think are just really important for you as the commissioners and the people of Haywood County to know is that we did get value in this bond market. It was a very challenging market. It has been for most of the year. The final yield wound up being just under 6%, but the two main things to make note of there is we were entering the municipal market as an unrated entity. We just were not established long enough to be able to go into the Standards & Poor's or the Moody's markets to get rated at a high level. But even with that, we were one of only 3 municipal bonds that hit the market on the 17th of August that actually was able to pull back our offering and lower the yields and put it back out there and still sell. Every other municipal bond offering that day went up, so they actually cost the people borrowing the money more. So we were one of 3 that actually got it a little bit cheaper, so we were pretty happy about that. The way that we also know that we have some value in that market and really squeezed everything that we could. None of the entities that bought our bonds on that day have been able to resell our bonds because that is typically how the financial institutions make some money, is that they will repackage bonds and resell them. And so our bonds have not hit the secondary market. There was one offer to sell part of it by one of the institutions, and they were going to lose money if they'd followed through with the deal. So we actually squeezed the most value that we possibly could out of that bond market on that particular day. And that goes hand in hand with finding some good partners to work with, but also the financials that we were able to present and the growth numbers that we were able to present and show there with that. So those are the pieces that we have there. As we look ahead, we are continuing to expand, and we're starting with some of our extracurricular and athletic offerings. We've just completed middle school volleyball and boys soccer, as well as cross country for middle school and high school volleyball. Getting ready to enter into the basketball season in the spring. We're slated to offer girls soccer, tennis, and golf for both genders. And we've also initiated Girls on the Run for our elementary age students there as well. We did just pass last month a part of our bonds and policy there. We are going to allow high school students who are not members of Shining Rock to participate with our athletics. We want to be able to give some of those students who are out in our community who otherwise do not have an opportunity to participate in athletics that opportunity to do so. And also give us an opportunity to be able to field teams that would be a little bit more competitive at the same time, so that there's a mutual benefit for both parties there with that. We are going to have an open enrollment that's in a little bit of a unique spot of the year. Typically, our open enrollment falls in the spring, but we will have an open enrollment for high school students only between Thanksgiving and Christmas, and this would be ones who want to join us beginning for the second semester. And we'll begin offering 11th grade, as I mentioned, next fall. So we're continuing to progress forward and move forward and do some really nice things here at Shining Rock and do our best to represent Haywood County well. So I think that is the end of my presentation right there. Are there any questions or thoughts or things that I can elaborate on for you?
Draws students to your school. What do you think you do different that the other schools in the county don't do?
It's a bit of a loaded question, isn't it, Miss Bess? No, that's okay. And I think that I think for us what we try and do is we want to make sure that we're fostering a sense of community and that there is access to all layers of the organization. If you are a student, you have access not just to your teacher, but if you're, you have access to lower school director, you have access to head of school. That's not necessarily the case in a county school system. You don't have access as a student, much less as a parent, to the top layers of the organization. And that is something, as a charter school, just by size, they do. So I think access, which in turn turns into voices being heard. And I think that that's one of the things that, sometimes it is, as you know, as county commissioners, taking the time and listening to everyone, it can be very plotty. It can take a lot of time to do, and sometimes it isn't always pretty. Sometimes it even gets a little messy, but people get heard. And when we do come to a resolution and a decision, we move forward with all of our stakeholders engaged and involved. I think that they appreciate having the opportunity to have choice in public schools. That I think is probably the driving pieces there. It's really, that's a tough question to answer without, really I think doing something that I don't think is terribly appropriate, which is, saying things, not positive of the other public schools, because at the end of the day, we're all public schools. And we're all here for the kids and the benefit.
I guess the reason I ask that is you have from the 2021 year to 2023 year, a gain of 191 students. Mm-hmm. And then you said you had a wait list. And what grades were the wait list in? We had wait list this year, first grade, sixth grade was the two that stuck out the most. I think we were full at third grade. We are full. Honestly, there's really not a place for me to squeeze any middle schooler in at the moment. We're full all the way through there as well. So I think the other piece, as you look into the differences there,
our students are more than a test score. And I know that's not exactly the most PC thing to say in the reality of it, but we really want our students to come out as well-rounded and grounded citizens. My teachers, part of their responsibilities in the intermediate and middle school grades, so 5 through 8, is they actually teach an elective in addition to their core classes. And one of my teachers, he has a passion, and I leaned right into it. He wanted to teach woodworking. So we have 5th and 6th graders doing woodworking, and and it's the basics of things, things that, we as adults take for granted, but how do we nail? How do we use screwdrivers? How do we do some of these basic things to be able to construct some things? One of the things that we did learn through that process, do not let 15 students loose with hammers on the 2nd floor of an all-concrete building. You will hear it everywhere. And it was, we did that once, and we did not do that again. Yeah, we learned that hammering needs to happen outside, not on the 2nd floor. But we want our kids to be well-rounded. And some of our high school offerings include Appalachian music and Appalachian history. And, these are ones that my teachers have a passion for, so they're natural subjects and contents for us to be able to dive into. Because it's important for our kids to be able to, yes, they need to pass tests, but they really need to be able to enter a workforce, and they need to be a good employee, and they need to be able to know where they've come from to be able to go forward.
Don't you, just along that lines, I don't mean to butt in, but I think you offer a classical education more than the public schools do, which is, grammar, logic, and rhetoric. So I know when we homeschooled, that's the way we looked at it, was a classical education, was to have that method of teaching. And I think a lot of parents favor that over the public school approach, if you will. So, do y'all teach Latin?
We do not teach Latin right now, but we do have foreign language and foreign countries and that aspect of things present through all the elementary grades. So our kids get their electives each week. So there's not a week where they skip art or music, and they also get the opportunity to get Spanish beginning in 3rd grade right on up and through high school. So,
well, I just know Latin. Our kids had Latin. My youngest son had 5 years of Latin before he got to 7th grade. But, it's just, but you might consider adding that. But I think that approach is probably what, that's just my opinion, maybe, is that you're gaining students.
No, and again, I think for us, what we've really, we want our kids to be able to have some of the soft skills that the classical approach does present, being able to understand, how to think and be able to communicate with each other and to be respectful of each other and to be able to move forward, I think, as a part of a greater system in society. So our kids, I will say for the early college, I always hate seeing our kids go to the early college because, I miss them, but I'm always very proud of them for going to the early college because it is a tough bar to strike to be able to get there, and I'm very proud of them in that when they do go, they're successful.
Josh, are you required to have certified teachers?
Yes. Well, as a charter school, there are guidelines there where there's a little bit of wiggle in charter schools, but for us, we do not lean into that. We make sure that all of our teachers are certified. Okay.
The C rating that you mentioned earlier, how does that compare to the public schools in the county?
I think if you looked at the whole schools, and again, it's really hard to compare us to the other county schools because none of the rest of them are K-9 schools, in terms of that. This year, we would have been probably in the bottom third if you were to rank us out amongst all the county schools. If you looked at us last year, we would have been, in the middle we'd have been about 4th or 5th amongst all the county schools, and we would have had the second most growth of all the county schools. It's one of the reasons I think, again, for the purpose of test scores, our goal is to be good, solid B school as a school when it comes to these grades, because we don't want to sink down and be a D. That's not acceptable. If you're an A, that's awesome, and that should be celebrated. But, we want to be a good, solid B. And if you look at where the schools, even in Haywood County, if you look over a wider trajectory beyond just 1 year, that's where we all tend to fall, is somewhere in that high C to low A range. We're all right there. And it's why truly everyone should be proud of the public schools in Haywood County.
How many teachers do you have in your school? Approximate. You don't have to.
We should be somewhere around 40, right around 40, 42, give or take. Staff-wise, actually, we're more than that. Let's see, total staff, we should be up somewhere around 60 or so, counting teacher assistants, office staff, and bus drivers, custodial. We'd be up above 60.
Are you having any trouble maintaining staff or making sure you have enough teachers for all your classes?
Incredibly difficult right now. It is exceptionally difficult to find folks. And really that's one of the things that I have a person on staff that his sole responsibility is if we have good, strong candidates who maybe need a lateral entry pathway to be able to get certified, that is his responsibility, is to seek certification pathways for them. Because, to be honest with you, the number of teachers out there in the system are just not there. It's why I think you're seeing the state look at some creative pathways for teacher licensure. That's not an endorsement of that, because I'm not a big fan of lowering standards to get teachers into the classroom, but that's why you're seeing some alternative pathways come out of Raleigh for that. Again, not an endorsement, just it is a real problem. It's a real struggle.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Morgan, for that report. I did have a question for you. I know that you got a 10th grade this year, and looks like you're going to have 11th grade starting next year. Is the plan to go ahead the following year and have a 12th grade?
Yes.
So those students can graduate?
Yes.
Do you have the brick and mortar piece of that already in place? You don't need to add no more space necessarily. Is that accurate to say?
I don't know if that's accurate to say. Where we are right now, we have space at Dogwood to expand a little bit further from there, because right now we have, there's 3 units down there that are our main classroom buildings. One of those has the junior academy in it. One of the other buildings primarily is where we have the high school, and so that leaves us a third that we can actually expand our high school program into. We'll probably have enough space to be able to expand there. With some of our pieces. That's not our long-term objective. The long-term objective is to add an additional wing onto our Russ Avenue campus. It just simply, for several reasons, one being just the finances of it, it simply isn't, it would not have been responsible of us to take on what would essentially have been another $8 to $9 million worth of debt, for that wing. Without getting through this process first. By having this bond in hand, it does make an easier pathway for us to do that expansion later on. But we don't have to do that. We're not pressing to do that right now or really within the next couple of years. We have time to be able to expand and do it responsibly as we go along through there.
Thank you for answering that. If you continue to have a waiting list like you've had this past year, is there any plans or any talk of adding on to, say, a third grade class where you can expand that classroom size or even more classrooms?
Yeah, so, we're pretty snug in terms of spaces and to add at Russ Avenue. However, that is, again, why we would look to do some addition. And again, that would help us with our portfolio to be able to go back out to the bond market and demonstrate that need and be competitive there with that. Because that is one of the things that's a little bit tricky for us being a charter school is we do not get access to capital outlay funds. So that is money that the state does not give charter schools. The county schools get those, but we do not. So we have to do all of this without that pretty sizable chunk of funding. That's true too. Not trying to go into finances 101 or anything, but that's true even from county funds. County funds that are designated specifically for capital outlay to the county schools, we don't have access to those either. So the only way that we as a charter is if they are in the general education fund of things there with that. So we have to be prudent and mindful of those things, because we want to, again, we want to grow, we want to continue to grow and make sure that we're serving and providing a good resource for our citizens and our students, but we also don't want to grow just for the sake of growing. We want to do it well and do it responsibly, and it goes back, I think, to Mr. Kirkpatrick's issue of staffing. This year, it truly would have been a dual problem for us. One, space would have been something we would have figured out, but finding the qualified candidates to fill those positions, it's been very trying over the last little bit. Didn't mean to go into Finance 101, but that's a whole that's a whole thing.
One final question. Haywood County Schools just announced that they ranked 7th out of 115 districts, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
Were your results or numbers included in that ranking?
Mm-mm.
Okay,
No.
so that's just the counties.
Yeah, we are, probably the easiest way to think of us is that we are our own school entity outside of Haywood County Schools. What does, and again, what we wind up getting judged on, and why we have to make sure that we continue to grow on our academic sides is when it comes up time for charter renewal, we are judged not just by the state scores, but by the district in which we reside. So, Haywood County Schools results are compared with ours, just like our results are compared with the state. And so, if they're performing well, we also need to perform well, and vice versa. If we're performing well, the county needs to perform well. And ideally, that's done through collaboration and things of that nature. But when it's not, you still make it work.
I'd just like to say thank you for coming. I believe all the other folks up here have asked some of the questions that possibly I would. I think I've gleaned the information that I was looking for, so appreciate the update. Thank you for coming.
Absolutely glad to do it. And, if there's anything, at any time that I can help contribute with or share, feel free to ask. And, anytime you want to pass through and see what we've done, feel free to come by and, I'll give you a tour. You can see what we've got up there on the hill. So, but thank you. I appreciate y'all's time as well.
Thank you, Josh.
Yeah, he's finished.
Okay, the next order of business is a discussion or adjustment to the agenda, but we do not have any tonight. After that, we have the consent agenda. Does any commissioners have any questions on the 5 items in the consent agenda?
No, I looked over it earlier today, Chairman Inslee, and I don't have any questions.
Okay, hearing none, I'll entertain a motion. We can approve the consent agenda as is presented.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, any discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Okay, anyone opposed? Okay, we'll move on to the regular agenda. Really, all 6 items in the regular agenda, I think, are related. Well, maybe not the last one. The 5 of them are, though. So, Christian, let's see, David, I guess you do it first. So this is the request approval of a budget amendment of a state grant, Haywood Housing Initiative, $1,112,500 to accept and appropriate Haywood Housing Initiative grant from Dogwood Health Trust and for approval for county manager to execute all required documents. And we have our Community and Economic Development Director, David Francis, here to talk to that.
Good evening.
Hey, Dave.
Hope everybody's doing well tonight. At the last meeting in September, we announced that the county had received the Dogwood Health Grant for our housing initiative to bring more affordable and workforce housing to Haywood County. And by doing that, we are doing three initiatives. We're doing a paving project in Bethel Village, starting a program with pathways for the ability to transition folks from homeless to employment to work initiatives. And then we're also creating a revolving loan fund. And what the revolving loan fund will do, again, will help our community partners, Mountain Projects, the Waynesville Housing Authority, and Habitat for Humanity to advance their causes and to be able to build more housing in Haywood County. So that's because one of the things when we were trying to figure out how the best way to tackle affordable housing was the commissioners have been very generous. What we did with the Haywood County Hospital, and then the grant that we had for Mountain Projects a few years ago. But I wanted to make sure that there was something that lasted longer and longer, and it seemed like the communities that had a better way of tackling affordable housing had a revolving loan fund that was there for the people to be able to use, the community partners that be able to use. We're still working on our bylaws and procedures. We had a meeting with the North Carolina Housing Finance Agency on Friday. They gave us a few suggestions. So we're getting closer and closer to getting that done. So we hope to be up and running sometime by December or 1st of January. So as you were alluding to, Mr. Chairman, there's a lot of ins and outs to get the acceptance of the grant there due to some of the ARP funding that we use. But I'm excited about this, and I really appreciate your all support. And I think we're making a good impact. I had a meeting with Mountain Projects this morning in anticipation of how we're moving forward over this with these funds, with the North Carolina Office of Resiliency and Recovery funds that we'll be receiving hopefully sometime beginning at the first quarter of 23. So these two programs together, I think, are going to make a very big impact in our county for years to come. So any questions?
Can you give it can you or should you give some suggestions of what Mountain Projects is going to use some of this for?
Sure. So the Mountain Projects they have two, on the Dogwood grant, we're going to be paving Bethel Village, which is out in the Johnson Creek community. What the paving project will do will be open up for funding from USDA. That's one of the requirements that the development has to have, and that will allow more folks to come in through the USDA program. I think if I remember what Patsy said earlier this morning, they had 77 people waiting for this USDA grant, and so that will help the funding source from the USDA to put people in housing there, and then and then we'll be able to, with the revolving loan fund, they're able to do about from 1 to 3 houses at a time. With the revolving loan fund, we'll be able to do anywhere between 6 to 7 houses at a time. So we'll be able to bring houses quicker to the market, and also that price point for the more houses we're ordering, so they're modular houses, the more houses we're ordering, that price point comes down. So that helps tremendously there. And then with some of the North Carolina, the Encore funds, then we are moving those, and we're working on developing Harkins Avenue out that. And the revolving loan fund will help put houses in that community as well too. That'll be the two big projects that we're working on right now. Yeah. And this grant is for 6 years, and the Encore grant is for 6 years as well too. So, I'm sorry, the Dogwood grant's for 5 years, 5 years.
Anybody have any questions for Dave?
David, I noticed earlier when I was looking over this, the Dogwood Trust requires the county or the recipient of that to develop that plan and submit it to them. Are we responsible for submitting a plan on how we're going to use those funds?
We are submitting our bylaws for the revolving loan fund to the North Carolina Housing Finance Agency, and then Dogwood will in turn gets those and approves the revolving loan fund plan.
That would be the requirement. That
Yes,
would meet
that's
that
right.
requirement.
Yeah.
And
And
the
then-
administrative fees on handling the money, I'd say that'd be a small portion of that, but that would be taken from the grant itself as well.
Say that one more time, Mr.
The administrative fees on the money, on handling the money.
Correct, yeah. So we're working with the Sequoia Fund over in Cherokee that will manage the aspects of the loan administration. So we're working out a MOU with them, or memorandum of understanding with them.
Other questions? Okay. I'll entertain a motion. We approve item 1 of the regular agenda.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor indicate by saying aye. Aye. Okay, anyone opposed? Okay, it's unanimous. Thank you, Dave.
Thank you.
And then number 2 is to request approval of a budget amendment from the American Rescue Act funds, $1 million to accept and appropriate a portion of the second track, I guess, or tranche of the American Rescue Plan funds to be used as a match for the Dogwood Health Trust and Haywood Housing Initiative Grant for Affordable Housing. And our Finance Director, Christian, is going to be here to describe all of these.
Yes, items 2 through 5 are the same $1 million, and it goes in and out, in and out. And that's not us overcomplicating things. That's just how the Treasury says you need to allocate these funds. So this is just taking the same $1 million and allocating it into the ARPA fund is number 2. So we're just accepting it and allocating it into ARPA with number 2.
All you got to do is say federal government, and that makes all the sense in the world.
Yeah,
Because it
and
don't make any
this
sense.
is all run through the Treasury, and they don't typically do grants, so this is kind of, they're
okay.
really overcomplicating this because they're not used to dispersing this level of funds.
Okay, so anybody have any questions on that? Okay, I'll entertain a motion. We approve item 2 of the regular agenda.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, any discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Anyone opposed? Okay, that's unanimous. Okay, item 3 is to request approval of budget amendment, public safety, $1 million to appropriate funds from the American Rescue Plan for public safety salaries as required by the U.S. Treasury guidance for revenue replacement expenditure category 6.1. Christian?
Yes, so now we're taking that same $1 million and putting it into public safety salaries as step 2.
Okay. Any questions on that or discussion? Okay. Okay, I'll entertain a motion that we approve item 3 of the regular agenda.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor say aye. Aye. Anyone opposed? Okay, that's unanimous. Item 4 is to request approval of a budget amendment, public safety, $1 million to reduce salaries that were increased as a result of ARPA funds and to transfer those excess funds to grant projects for Haywood Housing Initiative with zero effect on actual salaries.
Okay, so now we're taking that $1 million out that we just put in salaries, and then we're going to move it again. So this is step 3.
Okay. Okay, so I'll entertain a motion we approve item 4 of the regular agenda.
So moved.
Second.
Second.
All those in favor say aye. Aye. Okay. Anyone opposed? Okay. It's unanimous. Item 5 is to request approval of budget amendment, SR Grant Project Fund, Haywood County Housing Initiative, $1 million to appropriate funds from the excess salaries from ARPA fund proceeds to cover county match of Dogwood Health Trust Haywood Housing Initiative program.
Okay, this is the last step. Now, the funds that we put in and then took back out of salaries are going to land in the housing fund to be used for a grant match.
Okay.
So-
Go ahead.
Let me weigh in on this for just a minute. So
Yeah.
just to be clear,
Yeah.
the North Carolina School of Government advised local governments to use the ARPA funds for things that qualified under those dollars, correct?
Yes.
And to take our monies that were allocated for salaries, for instance, and move that around so we could best utilize that funding, correct?
Yes.
Yes, so
It's overly complicated, but it just goes in and out. They call it supplanting.
Yes.
It's where we take the grant money, we run it in and out of salaries, and it lands where we want to use it, and that cuts the ties of all the unnecessary requirements that are tied to those grant funds. That takes those grant funds, and then when they end up, they're our funds, and we don't have to do all the really excessive reporting on those funds, because for ARPA purposes, we have used those monies to cover salaries, and that's all they care about. And this is, I have been to countless webinars and in-person classes with School of Government, and this is how they say to do everything that you can. Run it through up to, the limit that you can do this is $10 million. So they say run all of it through salaries and then land it where you want to use it. So it's not pretty, but.
you've done a great job clarifying that. I just wanted the listeners and the people that are, that pay attention to the meetings to understand why all that money that same pot of money was getting moved back and forth.
It's deceiving. It looks like we're taking $4 million, but we're taking the same $1 million and moving it 4 times.
Right. And we were directed to do that by the School of Government.
Yes.
That's how they advised us to do that, correct?
They
Okay.
have taken some of their staff and made them solely devoted to helping counties and municipalities use these ARPA funds. They have taken them from their other duties, and this is all they do all the time, is help the counties and the municipalities figure out how to use the ARPA funds within the Treasury guidance that is constantly moving.
Bless their hearts.
Yes.
I can only imagine how hard that would be for a School of Government person to be educated on that and be responsible.
Most of them are attorneys.
Oh, wow.
So I guess you've consulted with the county manager and Mr. Queen and all this. I'm sure you've had extensive discussions
Yes.
about all this.
Yes.
I refuse to have any opinions about this at all. This is something that the School of Government guys have figured out how to do this, and nod and say, oh yeah.
And I will say all the auditors, they follow the guidance from the School of Government too. If you're doing something outside of what the School of Government recommends, you're going to get scrutinized heavily.
Just 2 words, federal government. So that's all you need to know.
Well, I mean, it doesn't appear to be real complicated. I mean, we received the grant for $1,112,500. We had to match that grant with $1 million. So we had to come up with the $1 million. So we took our American Rescue Act funds and used those funds that we received appropriately for public safety salaries. Then you took the budget amendment to reduce the public safety salaries by the $1 million because we put that money where it was supposed to be, and we'd already budgeted for that. So then we can take that $1 million and apply it to this grant.
Exactly.
When the music stops, if you're sitting in the right chair, you get a cake.
Exactly.
And you said all those guys were
or you
lawyers,
could
and a
describe
lawyer
it
just
that
pointed
way.
out what to do.
I said it's the ARPA hokey pokey.
Yeah.
Put it in and you take it out a couple different times.
I think Tommy's playing musical chairs down there.
Hey, we just had a successful county fair, and there was some wonderful cakes given away.
Cakes.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're on item 5. Anybody have any more questions? And I appreciate Jennifer and Kirk, because I guess everybody's eyes are glazing over, but anyway. So I'll entertain a motion, we approve item 5 of the regular agenda.
So moved.
Second.
Okay. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Okay. Yay, we're done with all that. Next is to request approval of a budget amendment, facilities and maintenance for $104,771 to appropriate fund balance for the Law Enforcement Center HVAC replacement approved in fiscal year '22 that was not completed until fiscal year '23. Go ahead, Christian.
Yes, this was to work on the LEC HVAC. Like everybody, supply chain issues. It did not get completed in 2022, but it was budgeted and approved at that time. So we just want to carry those funds over so we can pay that bill in fiscal year 2023.
Okay. Any questions on that? Okay, I'll entertain the motion. We approve item 6 of the regular agenda.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion at all? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Anyone opposed? Okay, it's unanimous. Okay, thank you, Christian. Okay, then our next order of business is appointments, and we have 2. The first one, Ryan, you want to?
Sure, Mr. Chairman.
You want to do that?
Reappointment of Susan Brown to a second 3-year term serving as an ETJ member for the Clyde Planning Board. We received an email saying that the Clyde Mayor and the Board of Aldermen have recommended Ms. Brown to reappointment.
Okay, I'll entertain a motion. We approve the item 1 of appointments.
So moved.
Is there a second? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Anyone opposed? That's unanimous. Number 2 of appointments, go ahead, Bryant.
A reappointment of Mr. Eddie Lale to a second 3-year term serving as an ETJ member for Clyde Board. We have the same email from Clyde saying the mayor and the Board of Aldermen wish for his reappointment.
I entertain a motion. We approve item 2 of appointments.
So moved.
Second.
Okay. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Okay. Anyone opposed? That's unanimous. Now, that concludes our business for this session. Does anyone have any other business before the board? And Tommy, I know you want to elaborate on the fair. You said
We had a great fair. I think it set records from all standpoints. I think we set records for every single night, including the opening night. And the Friday night free rodeo, you got a free rodeo with the admission price, and I think word got around the county because we had to actually close the gates coming into the facility at 15 till 8 Friday night. We were competing with Friday night football around the area too, so it was phenomenal. We had no parking. We closed the gates for about 30 minutes, and everyone really enjoyed it. You can't see a championship rodeo for $8 anywhere in the state, but we did that as a fair board to service to the community, and it was a big hit. So we had a great fair.
very good. Well, Friday I live out 209, and I had to go to Tractor Supply. And so when it was about 6 o'clock, and they were backed up almost to Lowe's, to the bridge overpass. So I was able to get to Tractor Supply, and when I left, I went a different way.
Yeah.
I went the long way around. So
And also Saturday we had a Haywood idol competition, and I would suggest that anyone in my hearing out there watching this, or maybe a fellow commissioner, if you'd like to enter that next year, I will pay your entry fee, and I'll take care of anybody here that wants to enter that Haywood Idol contest. And I get to pick the song that you have to sing, though.
Haywood Idol. I couldn't figure out what he was talking about.
Well, we had the mayor.
Like American
Like
Idol.
American Idol.
We had the mayor of Kenton and an acclaimed award-winning singer, and another person there. They were the acclaimed judges, and the audience got to vote, and it was just a wonderful time. We had a full house.
who won?
And also had some great gospel singing music on Sunday evening. Had the Primitive Quartet on their farewell tour. Just a packed house. I mean, we had some great entertainment that drew in a lot of people. So it was a good time. Had great weather, and that's always, when you plan something like that and put the hours in to do it, you just hope that it doesn't come a tropical blast on you. But
So who won the Haywood Idol? Who was the person that won?
her last name was Deese, and she won the whole thing. She played the guitar and sang, and she was phenomenal. So
Right, that's great. Well, I will say the Lord blessed us to have that. Not if it had been the weekend before, it would have been a disaster. Yeah. So, but you know, that was a great weekend of weather. I thought it was perfect. So
there were several winners. You know, if you're interested in joining that Haywood Idol, we had different age brackets. You had a junior division. There's about 3 divisions, and there was multiple winners. So
we had a lot of winners. Okay. Entertaining motion, we adjourn.
Well, wait a second. Every year we mention a certain game, and it hasn't been mentioned this evening.
I'm sorry, Kurt.
Nobody's mentioned it this evening. I will say,
I think every blind squirrel,
the 100th
you know how that saying
anniversary of the Pisgah-Tuscola game, Canton-Waynesville game, and it was worth, it was worth every minute of it. I mean, not just because Tuscola won, because it's been a long time, but
good ball game.
It was a good ball game. My father-in-law was there, and he's not a Tuscola-Pisgah guy at all, and he said it was one of the best high school football games he's seen. I mean, there was a lot of different plays that weren't great plays and things like that, but it was just an exciting game to watch. I mean, no matter who won that game, it would have been exciting. But it was
college atmosphere.
Yeah, it was. I mean, if you kids that get to play in that game, and I played in that game, and I never will forget my junior year coming out and looking at the stands. I mean, college kids don't get to. Most college football players do not get to play in front of that kind of crowd.
You're right.
It was a good game, and then there was, I don't know how many thousands of people there, but there were thousands and thousands. I don't know if it reached the 15,000, but then, then you saw those people Friday night, and then Saturday I came here to the Apple Festival, and stood right here at the courthouse and looked all the way down the road, and you couldn't see anything but people. Nothing but, I don't know how many people. It must have been a record crowd there as well. So
Yeah.
We were, whether it was local people or whether it was tourists, this whole weekend, Haywood County had a lot of moving and shaking going on.
I couldn't get close to Main Street Saturday.
Yeah.
I came through here, you couldn't get close. It's backed up.
Well, it was the first time, I think the parking deck was completely full. They were turning people away at 11 a.m. in the morning from the parking deck. There were so many people here.
Well, my son was at the Tuscola Pisgah game, and he said that he was standing down where the pass was thrown for the 2-point conversion, and he said they executed that play. They just didn't. The ball was just short, and but Pisgah executed the play. The play was there, and it was just a great game. I mean, it was just,
not only was it 2 overtimes, it was about 2 inches.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, you're right. He said it barely skipped, and my son played for Tuscola, and in years past, but he said he felt bad. He felt bad for the Pisgah players because the pass was there, and it just and you think about. I'm sure they'll remember that for the rest of their lives. So, but anyway, probably shouldn't talk about a downer, but it was a great game. And
I guess after how many years, Tommy, was it?
9.
9, okay.
But
after 9 years, we'll congratulate you.
But the record is 10, and I was part of that.
Working on my math, our Christian.
I love it.
I think we need to put those uniforms back on and line it up again, don't we? Yeah. That was how many years ago? 4 or 5 years. I'm just glad I'm not in here wearing a red jersey again.
Yeah, maybe it's a good idea we didn't bet this year.
Yeah.
At least y'all's goalpost didn't get tore down.
That's true.
Okay. Well, they did at Tennessee, though. They tore down a goalpost in Tennessee.
Yeah, and they need it back, don't they? Don't they have a game this coming weekend?
Yeah, well, they threw them in the river, Tracy says.
Yeah, good luck.
They're going to have to find some. If they have to wait on somebody to make them, they're going to be in trouble.
Seen where they're trying to get them to get it back out of the river so they can put it back up.
That's probably what they have to borrow a boat, Brandon.
Yeah.
Okay, does anybody have anything else? Okay, it was a good meeting, so I'll entertain a motion, we adjourn.
So moved.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay, everybody be safe, thank you. Forgot about